This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The U.S. targets al-Shabaab commanders in a drone strike following the Mogadishu bomb attack. Vote counting underway in Guinea Bissau after a presidential runoff election. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. The 2022 Winter Olympics gets a major upgrade as a high-speed railway connecting the co-host cities goes into operation. And in sports, Egypt hailed for successfully hosting the first 24-team African Cup of Nations this year. In our top story this hour, the U.S. military has launched airstrikes against al-Shabaab militants in Somalia, reportedly killing 4 members of the al-Qaeda-linked group. Sunday strikes come one day after Somalia's deadliest attack in 2 years. Meanwhile, a Turkish military plane has evacuated some of the injured survivors. At least 79 people were killed after a truck bomb exploded in the capital, Mogadishu. 2 Turkish nationals were among the casualties. The death toll is expected to rise, with at least 149 people injured in the blast. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Let's bring you more on this now. We go live to Mogadishu, where journalist Mohammed Kahir Mohamud joins us with the latest. Mohammed, 2 days on since that horrific attack, tell us what new information is emerging on the ground in Mogadishu.
Well, the death toll has slightly increased to 81 after one of the 16 victims who were critically wounded and airlifted to Turkey just succumbed when it reached Ankara last night. Also, the number of deaths has also exceeded 100. A government spokesman from the Ministry of Information has also confirmed that more than 25 people, including children, are still missing. It's still unclear whether they are dead or alive. Also, there is American airstrikes on al-Shabaab south of the capital, Mogadishu, in the Lower Shabelle region. U.S. Africa Command said that it carried out airstrikes targeting al-Shabaab. In the statement, it said it killed 4 militants and destroyed 2 vehicles. So, but also a message of condolences coming from the international community towards the President of Somalia. President of Somalia, a statement from his office last night said that the president received a phone call from the prime minister of the neighboring state, Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, where he condoled about what happened on Saturday. Also, a previous phone call from the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, also condoled. So the situation of the capital is now calm after 2 intense days following the attack that killed more than 80 people.
So good to hear, of course, that calm has returned to the city. But what does this attack say about security in the Somali capital, considering the long-term and concerted efforts by state security forces to keep Mogadishu safe?
Well, the Somali capital, Mogadishu, has been experiencing frequent terror attacks from armed group al-Shabaab since the group was pushed out of the capital in 2011. Now, there are some efforts by the federal government of Somalia with its international partners to keep the group attacks out of the capital. These efforts include training of Somalia troops by the AMISOM, African Union, the Turkish, and they also more airstrikes by the American drones. So, but these efforts by the international community has not kept the group from carrying out sophisticated attacks such as what happened on Saturday. So the experts say it's more based on intelligence than combat to win the attacks against this group.
And if we look a little closer, of course, at AMISOM, we know that they're pulling out of the country by 2021. Is the reduction of AMISOM forces visible on the streets of Mogadishu? I mean, to what extent has the drawdown of AMISOM troops created a space for terror incidents like the one that happened on Saturday to take place?
Well, the reduction of the troops are not really visible here in the capital because most of the troops are based outside the capital in the regions. But what we have seen in the capital in the last few days is that the patrol of the AMISOM police and the Somali security agencies conducting patrols during the night. Also coming to the question is that, well, the security agencies here in Somalia are trying their best to do away with these kind of attacks. But the reduction of the troops is not really very visible here in the capital, but rather in the regions.
Mohammed Mohammed, thank you so much for that update. And as we heard there, the death toll rising to 81 and 25 people still unaccounted for. Let's turn our attention to news coming from Guinea-Bissau now, where vote counting is underway. Citizens in the West African country voted in a runoff presidential election. The poll was between two former prime ministers who both promised to bring stability to the nation. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
Polling clerks began tallying votes in the capital Bissau soon after the polls closed on Sunday. African observers say voting went smoothly in the election to succeed incumbent President José Mario Vaz. The ruling PAIGC party's Domingos Simões Pereira is seen as the front-runner. He won the first round on November 24th with 40% of the votes. Opposition candidate Mario Sisoka Mbalo is a brigadier general who came second with 28%. In this runoff poll, he has accused authorities of stuffing ballot boxes.
We deplore the information we've received of the ballot stuffing at the Interior Ministry. The ballot boxes should be stored at the Interior Ministry and should not be moved to the voting stations. We shall be vigilant, just as the international community must be.
Guinea-Bissau has suffered 9 coups or attempted coups since independence from Portugal in 1974. Both candidates say that if elected, they will work to overcome a long-running political impasse and modernize the country.
As a Guinea-Bissau citizen, I appeal to both candidates to accept the results because the people are really fed up with the repeated political crisis.
The Electoral Commission is expected to announce the provincial results on January 1st. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
International news now. The DPRK leader has called for positive and offensive measures to ensure security ahead of a year-end deadline, which he set for denuclearization talks with the United States. State media said Kim Jong-un asked for action in the country's foreign affairs, munitions industry and armed forces at a weekend meeting of party officials. Pyongyang earlier urged Washington to formulate a new approach to negotiations, warning that it may take an unspecified new path if the United States fails to meet its expectations. In response, Washington said it was open to dialogue with Pyongyang and was urging Kim to follow through on its denuclearization commitments. Meanwhile, China says it's keeping close contact with UN Security Council members regarding denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. China and Russia submitted a draft resolution to the Council as discussions are scheduled for Tuesday on easing sanctions on the DPRK.
To maintain peace and stability, to solve problems through dialogue and consultation, to build a permanent peace mechanism on the peninsula, and achieve denuclearization there are the starting points for China and Russia to push forward this draft resolution. China and Russia propose to adjust part of the sanctions against the DPRK to meet humanitarian needs and to support the dialogue process. China is currently maintaining communication with the members of the UN Security Council and relevant parties on draft resolution's content. China hopes that the UN Security Council members take responsibility on the peninsula issue, take active actions to support political settlement, encourage dialogue and consultation, and maintain peace and stability on the peninsula.
To Australia now, where authorities have called for over 30,000 people in the state of Victoria to evacuate their homes. This comes amid the area's ongoing bushfire crisis. There are fears that 3 fires, which started over a month ago, could burn out of control in East Gippsland, an area half the size of Belgium. Strong winds and temperatures of over 43 degrees Celsius could shut down the main highway in the country's southeast. Residents and holidaymakers are being urged to leave before it's too late. For a closer look at the situation, here's CGTN's Nicole Ng.
This year's fire season began early in Australia, the result of a warm and dry winter. Record heat has turned it into a crisis. Heatwave conditions in the state of Victoria are expected to reach new highs today, with temperatures of over 40 degrees forecast. There are fears that winds could fan the fires, some of which have been burning for over a month, sending them out of control.
If you're holidaying in that part of the state, it's time that you left.
In neighbouring South Australia, conditions are also catastrophic. Authorities say dry lightning could spark new blazes across the state, which just went through its driest winter in over 10 years. Across the country, over 3 million hectares have burned since September. 10 people have died and more than 1,000 homes have been destroyed. As the fires advanced rapidly, some owners felt they had a lucky escape.
I lost my house on Friday. These are the shoes. I walked to work on Friday. Only 30 years.
How quickly did it come through?
I don't know because I couldn't get back in to save it.
Okay, right.
I was down in the town because we work in the city.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's pretty heart-wrenching.
As of last week, 2,000 emergency service workers were battling some 100 blazes in New South Wales, the most populous state, which has borne the brunt of the damage this season. The fires have left Sydney-siders choking on smoke for several weeks. Earlier this week, Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced that volunteer firefighters in the state would get a cash bonus for their much-needed work this season, a move that was welcomed.
A lot of people are just missing their families, even people who don't work or are retired, they've skipped Christmas with their families and their grandchildren. So yeah, it's a wide extreme of sacrifice that people have been putting in.
Conditions are expected to deteriorate as the new year approaches. In Sydney, there have been calls for the traditional fireworks display to be cancelled. But unless the situation becomes catastrophic, the local government says it will go ahead for the time being. Nicole Ng, CGTN.
Let's take a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. As 2019 draws to a close, we sample views from across Africa on expectations for 2020. And we take you on a tour of a fishing island in Malawi with very strict customs.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live, find your voice.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
Reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Looking back on 2019, it has been an eventful year for Egypt on the security front. Now, Cairo had launched a crackdown on terrorism back in 2016, and with the end of 2019 now in sight, we take a look at how much the situation has improved in the North African country. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more.
The war on terrorism has continued in 2019. There were only a couple of major incidents during the year. The main one has been a bomb explosion in front of a cancer hospital in Cairo, killing tens of people last August. Official state cap mass statistics have shown a 95% drop in attacks. Most of the terrorists are cornered in the northeastern tip of the country bordering Gaza.
The strong security control by ministers of interior and defense have been effective in closing down on militants. The strategy of deterrence has also allowed the police force to ambush hideouts and foil attacks before they happened, which saved scores of lives and curbed violence effectively. The Air Force has also been vital in raiding terrorist camps along the borders to stop any infiltrations from neighboring countries like Libya.
Egypt has successfully arrested the two most wanted terrorists, Mohammed Ashmawi, who was caught by the Libyan National Army and handed over to Egypt, and Al-Habbar, who was killed by police forces. The strategy going into 2020 is to resume the crackdown on the remaining militants.
Egypt has also been fighting terrorism on two fronts, the military side and the ideological side, facing extremism with moderate preaching to push the younger generation away from extremist thought. Egypt has also been cooperating with its African neighbors, which was highlighted during the African Defense Ministers meeting in Cairo recently.
The effects of the successful fight against terrorism has been evident in several sectors. There's been a record economic growth rates as well as a rebound in the tourism sector. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
For Tunisia, 2019 was a difficult year on the economic and social fronts. Despite security improving, many felt desperate because purchasing power had plunged to unprecedented levels. The year did have some success at the political level with peaceful presidential and legislative elections.
2019 was a very good year. I hope that 2020 will be as special, especially for the youth.
2019 was the worst year in decades. The economy is down. The people lost confidence in politics and fear terrorism. Despite the improved security, The state is fragile.
Tunisians have suffered in 2019. It was the worst in the past 8 years, with more misery and poverty. I'm pessimistic because life is too hard and expensive. I hope 2020 will be better.
In 2020, I wish for stability, a booming economy, more investment and jobs for youths.
And we also sampled views from Kenyans as 2019 ends and 2020 begins. Let's take a look.
It has been a tough year with a lot of challenges. Even the expectations maybe we had, plans we wanted to accomplish, a great percentage it has not been done. So maybe we are expecting that as we ushering in 2020, the new year, so we are expecting many goodies. We are believing that things are going to change.
Every year got its own resolutions, and we are hoping that the economy will loosen. At least it will be favorable to us. We also hope that it will favor us too.
Next year I'm looking forward for various changes from the government and in the entire society, and we are basing everything on positivity.
Well, speaking of New Year expectations, let's see what Zimbabweans have to say. Farai Makutoya joins us now live from Harare. Farai, not an easy year for Zimbabweans. Power shortages, price hikes, droughts and a health workers strike. What are Zimbabweans hoping for in 2020?
Well, indeed, Lindy, a very difficult year for Zimbabweans. Prices going up, and you didn't talk about inflation. Those are some of the challenges. Other challenges are still persistent. If you look right behind me, you will see that there is a queue of people waiting to get cash out of the bank. This despite the introduction and injection of fresh notes into the economy. So those are some of the ever-present challenges that Zimbabweans have, and we'll be hoping to see the back of come 2020. What Zimbabweans are also hoping for is a better agricultural season, because as we speak, more than half of the country's population will require food aid between now and June 2020. And so if we have a better agricultural season this year, then at least Zimbabweans will be able to grow their own food and put less pressure on what they require in terms of food. So those are the expectations in 2020. But there are also views from just ordinary Zimbabweans that I've caught up with here. Jason Seremwe is a citizen of Harare. Jason, 2020, what are your hopes? What are your aspirations?
Oh, thank you. My aspirations are in twofold. First and foremost, with this hyperinflation that's bedeviling our nation, I would like to be able to take care of my family, that is provide for them food, shelter and education. That's the first. Then secondly, my hopes for 2020 is to finish my projects. I'm building a house in the city and also at the farm. So they've been stalled because of the financial hardships. But now I'm hoping that 2020 is going to be a good year for me. I'll be able to finish all my projects and take care of my family.
We've certainly heard the finance minister say it will be a better year, better economically, better in terms of inflation. Are you confident that it will be? Do you believe him?
So much has been said, but so little has happened. So as where things are right now, I can simply just say I'm just waiting to see. That's what I and I think many Zimbabweans out there, we have just developed a wait-and-see attitude.
Indeed, a wait-and-see attitude developed by many Zimbabweans, but also a lot of hope that things can't get worse, that hopefully things can get better in 2020, and we'll wait to see if indeed that happens. As I said, government says there are challenges, they require time, the country is on the right track, but people just need to be patient for some of the plans that are being put in place to start to pan out. And so we'll find out if indeed this year 2020 has the hopes and aspirations that people like Jason have, whether they'll be realized indeed in this coming year, Lindy.
Indeed. It seems Zimbabweans will be drawing on hope and resilience in the coming year. Thank you so much, Farai Makutoya, joining us there live from Harare. Now, for nearly 2 decades, social media has become increasingly popular across Africa, no less in Nigeria. It served as a platform for interaction for both the government and citizens. Now, Nigeria's parliament has recently moved to regulate social media. The decision has not gone down well with the masses. Nigeria's over 30 million internet users are now up in arms, as CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
It's back to the battleground for human rights lawyer and activist Martin Obono. His ammunition, the social media. For over a decade, Martin has used various social media platforms to advocate for transparency in governance, electoral reforms, human rights and social justice. He's propelled mass action against unfavorable policies and conditions, and he's totally averse to the prospect of a social media bill.
I think social media bill is a very, very repressive piece of proposed legislation that is geared towards legalizing illegality and giving legitimacy to shrinking civic space that the government is all out for against the citizens. So it is something that basically is trying to make citizens of Nigeria to be afraid of speaking up and to also reduce free speech.
There are two bills before Parliament, the hate speech and the social media regulation bills. Both have enjoyed quick progress on the floor of the Senate. Lawmakers say the essence of the bills are to curb fake news and comments capable of inciting on the internet. One had the death penalty, which was eventually removed following public outcry, and the other empowers government to shut down the cyberspace as deemed fit. And the bills have generated a myriad of reactions here.
It's so secure. Do I call it server or the internet, that people will not just post anything anywhere, especially on that way, because some people are posting some things that they don't even know the meaning.
It's just against human rights. You can't tell me not to talk, whereas you can talk. It's just totally not right. You're a human being, you should have a mind of your own, a say of your own. That's the advice I have for the youth of Nigeria.
It's commonplace for even democratic governments like Nigeria to use positive laws to regulate citizens for public interest. But the storms of protests, hashtags and campaigns against the social media bills is mostly because citizens believe that social media has done more good than harm in the country. And Nigeria's 30 million new media users feel the bill is a war on their voices, freedom and rights. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And to Malawi now, where an island on the shores of Lake Malawi has gained recognition for its unique sustainable fish management strategies. Interestingly, the sacred island prohibits women from setting foot on it. CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy finds out why.
Tucked in the middle on the southern shoreline of Lake Malawi is an isolated island called Mbenje. But good luck visiting if you are a woman. This tiny Malawian fishing island can only be set foot on by men.
Women are not allowed because of cultural values, as I've already said. So if we can bring a woman here, then bad luck, which means no fish can be caught in abundance. That means one bad luck which can a woman bring in this island.
The island is considered sacred, and many here say that women provoke the wrath of the spirits believed to linger over the island, and they bring bad luck to the fishers.
We can stay here 2 weeks, 3 months, or 4 months. Then if we go out, then you find a woman outside. Then thereafter, you come back, no problem.
As a woman, I do respect the traditions of our forefathers, and for sure I cannot set foot on Mbenje Island. If I am in need of fish from the island, I send money and the men deliver the fish to me here on the mainland.
Every year, the island is closed down between December and March to observe its 4-month curfew on fishing to allow fish to multiply. Communities surrounding Mbenje nourish the spirits of the island with annual sacrificial ceremonies marking the lifting of curfews on fishing.
We strongly believe in the spirits, and before we go into the lake, we have to pray to the spirits for guidance and protection, and also for the spirits to allow us better catches.
Drinking alcohol is prohibited on this island, so are women. The boys here are all about fishing and nothing else. Mbenje is also the ancestral burial ground for early chiefs. The islanders still pay their respects to the departed souls, believed to be the givers of the abundant fish species in Lake Malawi. Gambling and other life-threatening activities are all banned to maintain law and order. Violations of bylaws here are punishable by heavy sanctions. Besides, the island has strict laws against destruction of the environment. It's illegal to kill snakes and birds. Lake Malawi, Africa's third largest freshwater lake, is home to over 700 fish species. But catches keep falling as the number of fishers rise. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN, Mbenje Island, Malawi.
Chirping of birds, sounds of whispering trees, burbling of streams. When sunlight sets the forest's leaves aglow, and waterfall surges down from the mountain, we see and hear the Earth's wondrous beauty. The Earth is meant to be appreciated, and the life of its inhabitants deserves our endless exploration. Come with CGTN to listen and see, in chorus of life, to marvel at nature and life.
Well, time for a short break. Here's what's coming up in your business news up next. The 2022 Winter Olympics gets a major upgrade as a high-speed railway connecting the co-host cities goes into operation. And Egypt creates the world's largest coffee cup portrait.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
We start now in northern China, where the 2022 Winter Olympics have just got another major upgrade for athletes and visitors. A high-speed railway line connecting Beijing and Zhangjiakou, the co-host cities, has just gone into operation. The railway is over 170 kilometers long and has 10 stations. There's also a feeder line to the Chongli district, which will be the venue for most of the 2022 snow events. CGTN has sent 2 teams to the new lines, and here's reporter Sun Ye to share her experience after a round trip to Zhangjiakou.
We actually started and board on the first train on this Beijing-Zhangjiakou high-speed railway line. We stayed in Zhangjiakou for a bit, and then we took the first train from Zhangjiakou to Beijing on this high-speed railway line. And the two cities are 170 kilometers apart, and the train was not even traveling at the top speed it's designed for most of the time. It's designed for 350 kilometers an hour, and we were not traveling on that top speed, but it's still quick. And that's what the people on the train have been telling us, how excited they are.
I'm from Zhangjiakou and live in Beijing. The launch of this rail line is huge for us. It was like winning a lottery to get this ticket. I'm so lucky.
Of course, we are proud to be the first to run on the line. It's such a big change from years ago when it used to be slow and when you could smell the odor of gasoline.
And it's not just about fast, it's also the connection. The new line actually connects several other stops along the way, most notably, the Badaling Great Wall stop that's right under the best preserved and, of course, the most popular stretch of the Great Wall in Beijing. But besides that, today is a huge day for Zhangjiakou in terms of connection. From today on, it's going to be connected to the northern city of Hohor, which means from Beijing all the way to China's Inner Mongolia, it now has a high-speed railway connection, and it also cuts the commute from 9 or 10 hours before. Now it's like 3 hours from Beijing to Inner Mongolia, and that really says how fast China's high-speed railway network is developing. But that's not the only thing exciting about this new train line. My colleague Zheng Yibing is on a select train on this line. That train, they promised ultra-fast internet connection, some amazing high-tech features, and I myself can't wait to get on that train and experience that.
And of course, that feeder line, the Chongli Railway, also started operations, and our reporter Zheng Yibing took a ride on its maiden journey.
This is the first high-speed train from Beijing to Chongli in Zhangjiakou, Hebei Province. It travels at a speed of up to 350 kilometers per hour. A new line shortens the 174-kilometer trip from over 3 hours to less than 1. So let's have a ride. Outwardly, it looks like the other Fuxing bullet trains, but when we take a closer look, we find differences. It has newly added intelligent modules like the light system. It can adjust automatically based on the environment and how many passengers are on board. Of course, this is high-speed railway line for the upcoming 2022 Winter Olympic Games. So there are areas to store snowboards. That is a very convenient design. And there are places for journalists to file reports on the Olympic Games and the passengers to watch live Olympic broadcasts in the future. And one particular thing the conductor told me is they are using self-driving and Beidou navigation satellite system on this train to deliver passengers to their destinations fast and on time. There are 10 stations on the line, including one at the famous section of Badaling section of the Great Wall, and one at Taizicheng here in Chongli, which is close to the podium of the 2022 Winter Olympics. All these stations are equipped with smart devices, robots, and 5G networks. And the traveling experience on this line is excellent. So I'm planning a trip with my family on this line already. Zheng Yibing, CGTN in Zhangjiakou, Hebei Province.
Well, traveling across China by high-speed rail continues to get easier. Over the past year, rapid developments have been made to create a huge transport network. CGTN's Yu Yang has more.
It's China's latest mass transit milestone. By the end of this year, China's high-speed railway mileage reached 35,000 kilometers. Both construction and operation scale now rank first in the world.
People themselves now have more desire to travel, to see our beautiful landscapes. The original railway could not meet travel demand or requirements, which promoted the development of our high-speed railway technology and network construction.
Over 5,000 kilometers of high-speed rail has been opened during the past 12 months, hitting the opening peak of the past 4 years. In central China, the completion of the sections from Zhengzhou to Xiangyang, from Shangqiu to Hefei, brought high-speed rail to some small cities along the route. And the Yibin to Guiyang line has made it easier for people from poverty-stricken areas to travel around the country. Officials say China will continue to pursue high-speed railway technology and speed up EMU trains.
We are working on technology innovation, experimental verification, and the safety concerns of higher speeds, as high as 400 kilometers an hour. We will provide a time frame after getting a comprehensive demonstration of the needs of the national economy, the needs of the people, the safety verification test, etc.
Currently, over 5,000 high-speed trains run daily across China, transporting more than 5 million passengers in less than half the previous time. And in 2020, about 2.7 trillion yuan, or about $0.4 trillion, will be invested into the transportation development. Nearly 30% of it will go to the railway sector. And this provides a solid foundation for the country's railway networks to keep rolling on. Yu Yang, CGTN.
And turning to Egypt now, Tutankhamun is one of the country's most famous kings. And now, thanks to him, the country has broken a Guinness World Record. Tut Coffee created the world's largest coffee portrait. CGTN's Asta Tal has more.
65 kilos of coffee, 1,000 liters of milk. These are a few ingredients you need to break a Guinness World Record. Add some plastic cups, coffee, and a dedicated team, you'll get the world's largest coffee portrait.
Today we broke the record with 7,260 cups of coffee to make the portrait of a mask of Tutankhamun, which is really wonderful.
The event took place at the Grand Egyptian Museum. The Tut Coffee Company spent 12 hours on the feat. The museum will open next year and will host treasured items from Tutankhamun's tomb.
We could not find something better than coffee to welcome everyone. We also could not find any better inspiration than Tutankhamun for a coffee portrait. These will remind the world that the Egyptian civilization is the greatest and that we are waiting for you.
But one thing remained in order for King Tut to get written into another chapter of history.
The portrait belongs to King Tutankhamun. All of these requirements are met, but one of the requirements is that all coffee cups be distributed to those who attended or donated to charity.
The coffee was distributed among attendees. Workers were also given a sip of the historic coffee. Asta Tal, CGTN.
Time for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. A rhino believed to be the world's oldest dies in Tanzania.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is high risk.
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Hey.
Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
A rhino believed to be the world's oldest has passed away at the age of 57 in Tanzania. In a statement posted on social media, the Ngorongoro Conservation Area Authority announced that Fausta, an eastern black rhino living inside the conservation area, died last week after a period of declining health. Fausta had been living with the effects of hyena attacks as well as a failing eyesight. The rhino was first seen in 1965 in the Ngorongoro crater by scientists from the University of Dar es Salaam. According to the Conservation Authority, the typical life expectancy of a rhino is between 37 and 43 years. They can live up to around 50 though, if kept in captivity. Now, climate change and global warming are having an effect on ancient treasures. Several archaeological sites have been damaged by higher temperatures and pollution. Yasser Hakim looks at the effects in Egypt and efforts to restore the damaged sites.
Egypt houses most of the ancient monuments worldwide, and the effects of climate change has been apparent for years now. There have been several incidents of damage in artifacts by the rising temperatures.
The UN said that the cities of Alexandria and Osaka in Japan are two cities that could be overflooded by water due to global warming. The famous citadel of Kaitbe in Alexandria has lost 2,400 huge stones because of the higher sea levels. A $14 million renovation project is underway to restore it to its original form. Also, the statues of Memnon in Upper Egypt have been damaged because of the increasingly high temperatures from global warming.
The temperatures will keep rising every year, thus making it a continuous threat. Climate change will not only affect the monuments that we know, such as the pyramids and the temples, but also underground will be affected. Unearthed monuments will also be damaged. The underground water is endangering the structure of existing monuments, as well as artifacts that are still underground. And experts have been working on protecting Egypt's treasures from these effects.
Our antiquities are in huge threat of underground water. It is drowning out the artifacts, and it is also weakening the infrastructure of the famous monuments and could lead to their destruction. One example of how we deal with it is the Temple of Komombo. We dug trenches around it to isolate the temple and push the water out.
According to officials, this is an ongoing process to ensure the history and heritage can survive the hazardous climate change. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And coming up in your sports news, up next. Egypt hailed for successfully hosting the first 24-team African Cup of Nations this year.
You don't find the stories of North Africa